Today we're going over update 11.7. The Puerto Rico Dockyard is finally back, and there's a lot of other changes coming to the game. First of all, though, with the Puerto Rico coming back, we have a bit of an interesting scenario where people already have it from the previous dockyard. So what happens if you already have it and you complete this existing dockyard? Well, you're going to get enough resources to buy another tier 10 ship, whether it's from doubloons, steel, coal, or research points. It says here only doubloons, steel, and research points, but keep in mind you can always convert steel over to coal if you want to. To actually complete the dockyard, you need to finish 40 phases, and 6 of them will be required to purchase to actually finish it out at 1,750 doubloons each. 34 can be completed completely for free while going through the mission chain throughout the next 2 updates. And for a small portion in update 11.9, you can still also complete the dockyard, and it'll be available to purchase out the finish of it until update 11.10. While I'm certainly excited to try out the Puerto Rico, keep in mind it has battleship dispersion, not battle cruiser dispersion like an Alaska does. I think it'll be a very interesting ship still, but maybe not the tier 10 Alaska like we may have thought it would have been. Alongside the 200th anniversary of Brazil's independence, there's an event going on. So we're getting a new port, and there's a new tier 5 battleship coming into the game, the Rio de Janeiro, and looks like it could be fun. I'm curious to try it out, but these low mid-tier battleships often end up being a lot of guns, not very accurate, a lot of overmatch happening, not a lot of ability to bounce. It's a little bit less interesting gameplay-wise, at least for me personally, but it'll be interesting to see, and it'll be available earlier in September in exchange for 53,000 coal. Something I've been asking for a long time is the ability to change how the camera is feeling, and we're getting that in this update. It seems like the best part of this update is going to be being able to switch from the spotter plane camera back to the normal camera just by using C while the spotter plane is in the air. This is awesome because sometimes when you have a spotter plane up, you just wish you didn't, and this is really, really nice. I haven't been able to get onto the PTS to actually check out the camera changes, so I'm not sure how they're going to go. Some people have seemingly not been too impressed by them, but with this update, I'll definitely give it a go and try and figure it out myself. I have been asking for something like this so I can actually modify and change it myself in-game. We'll just have to see how good the tools are. I think a really good thing that Wargaming probably should have done, or maybe they can add this in a little bit later, is have an option to leave it at defaults or leave it at the old camera setting, because I know there's going to be people who just want the old camera back and to always just use what they've been used to. And I think having that option would have been a really good thing to have here. British battleships are moving into part 2 of early access, which means next patch we'll finally all be able to research them. Clan battles could be really fun this season, given that it's tier 8, not super ships, not tier 10, and no aircraft carriers. Only 1 battleship per team, and no more than 3 mercenaries per division. Those are the rules. I think it could be a good time. 6v6 tier 8 can be a lot of fun. There's also going to be 3 different brawls in update 11.7, and some of them could be a lot of fun. The first one being 12v12 tier 6 battleships. That seems absolutely insane, and I'll definitely have to check that one out. The second one being 4v4 with tier 4 ships. We're getting lower tiers. Could be pretty interesting. No more than 1 aircraft carrier, 3 battleships, 3 cruisers, or 3 destroyers. So there is CVs, which could put a damper on things in my opinion. But in the third round, we're going to get 3v3 of tier 4 ships. And again, carriers allowed, unfortunately, but I think that first one, the 12v12 battleships at tier 6, could be hilarious. There's also a web campaign coming out for the Hampshire, a tier 8 British heavy cruiser. If you're interested in that, you can go through that one and potentially get this ship. It's also going to be available early next year for purchase if you don't manage to get it. Unfortunately, there's a few negatives with this update, like a change to submarines. I think there's a very interesting potential with splitting out the hydrophone to submarine surveillance and a new hydrophone. It's just that The change also includes removing assured detection, or the 2 kilometer radius around your ship that you're guaranteed to be detected in. Submarines no longer have that. Instead, we're getting this submarine surveillance. I just think this guaranteed detect is just so fundamental to the game that taking it away may be a bit too far. This submarine surveillance acting a bit like a sub-only radar is interesting, and 6 and especially 9 kilometers range on the Germans is very, very good and may serve to spot submarines more, but I have a feeling that especially with this change to assured detection, we're going to see submarines a little bit less and maybe have even a harder time dealing with them. It's probably going to be even easier to get into the backline as a submarine. And potentially the worst part of update 11.7 is the matchmaker changes. Now we're going to see even more 4DD2 submarine matches where there's hardly anybody ever spotted, the match feels empty, and, well, there's not a lot to do, and there's not really any ability to push because there's a lot of ships waiting in concealment for you to push in and just instantly get killed. So prior to this update 11.7, there was a 40-second wait time before the matchmaker allowed a forward destroyer to submarine style game. They've moved that down to 25 seconds, nearly cut it in half, meaning that we're just going to get way, way more games where they just feel empty. And I'm sad about that. I was hoping they would continue along this line, trying to curate the matchmaker to get us better games, even if we had to wait a little bit longer. That seems to be not the direction they're going. On a more positive note, we're getting some shadow improvements, so the game's going to look a little bit better, and we're hopefully also going to see some UI improvements here and there around port. As I'm sure you saw yesterday, the Sevastopol has been announced. I've got my full review up on the channel if you haven't seen it already, but it's coming out in the Armory this update 11.7, and you can get it for 58,000 research points. There's a few other changes and improvements, but relatively minor bug fixes and that kind of thing. You can find that at the link in the description for this update patch notes. So overall, a pretty interesting update. I'm very curious to see about Puerto Rico. I've wanted to try that ship for quite some time, and we're finally going to be able to have that ship again. I haven't actually looked at the requirements or the shipbuilding phases to see what those missions entail. Previously, of course, it was just absurd amounts of grinding that were required. I'm hopeful that this time it's different and that it's actually attainable for most players. So let me know what you think about update 11.7 in the comments down below. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.